Writing my manuscript for the Unwow, Your Blueprint for Experience Designs of All Kinds, has me thinking about the little things that make big differences. Or, as one of my chapters puts it, small acts for big impacts. Rather than extravagant displays, it is the meaningful moments that can make a lasting impression. One of the things I am going to be asking for and sharing back out to you all are examples of small acts in experience design that you've seen have big impacts on audiences. If you have ideas on this, share them with me at feedback@experiencexdesign.com or DM me through LinkedIn. Who knows, your example might even end up in the book. I mean, wouldn't that be exciting? End up in a book? How cool would that be? Also, follow me on LinkedIn for more news about the Unwow book and how you can get involved more in the future. Now, on to the show.
1, 2, 3.
Hi, I'm Gary David. Welcome to Experience by Design, the podcast where we explore experience designs of all kinds. Hello, experience designers and EXDers everywhere. Hope you're all doing well and had a fantastic week. I'm actually recording this episode a week early as I'm on vacation with my family up in Lake Placid, New York, when this comes out. Lake Placid is a beautiful spot that we've been going to as a family for close to 20 years now. One of the nice things about going to a familiar place for vacation is all the constants that are there. In terms of Lake Placid, this includes Mirror Lake, which is just gorgeous, the Olympic skating oval, where Eric Heiden won his gold medals. Remember Eric Heiden? The ski jump, and the lovely High Peaks Mountains. All of this is a nice reminder of past summers, as well as current and future adventures. For some, it might seem a little boring to keep going back to the same place on vacation over and over again. But for me, it's something that I know will be there, some kind of regulating force in my life amidst a constantly changing world. So we like it. But there are changes as well. It's always interesting and a little depressing to see what stores have closed and what new ones have replaced them. And such is the way with entrepreneurship. There are successes and, well, not so successes, I guess you could say. I always admire people who take the initiative to start something new and can imagine the dreams that are bound up into these ventures. When I go back to Lake Placid, it's easy to mourn those businesses that are no longer there, as well as be hopeful for the ones who have just opened up. Today's episode on Experience by Design is all about the long-running story of entrepreneurship, together with the new unfolding story of AI. Demetri Papazissis hails from Greece, which has a long history of entrepreneurship, especially for immigrants who have spread around the world from Greece. He continues that legacy with the company Superbo, which is an enterprise-wide AI agent company. Superbo uses what it describes as a, quote, 4 capability layers that provide enterprise data semantics, AI agent governance, runtime compliance controls, and operational oversight to provide solutions for clients. Wow, that's a lot. And the conversation dips into more than just Superbo and AI. It's also about the spirit of entrepreneurship in Demetri's life, especially focusing on agility and freedom in the entrepreneur's journey. However, he describes his own experiences as an entrepreneur as being about 80% negative and 20% positive, which is probably something a lot of you listeners can identify with. This leads to a broader conversation about whether people are being encouraged to be entrepreneurs when that lifestyle may not be right for them. And we see this in all kinds of government initiatives and university programs to be an entrepreneur. But as you know, being an entrepreneur ain't no picnic. We talk about the impact of AI in terms of work, the economy, and society. We discuss the challenges of strategic adoption of technology, seeing ways that companies fail to implement because they don't have the strategy and support to succeed. He notes that successful AI implementation requires a partnership approach involving not just technological guidance, but also helping organizations address internal structural and relationship issues. You just can't put the technology in, turn the key, and expect everything to magically work. You got to do the background work to make it work. He also talks about how he is a self-taught a pianist playing piano, leading to admission to the Berklee College of Music here in Boston. Being there taught him the value of creativity and thinking outside of the proverbial box. Overall, it was a great chat about risk-taking, creativity, changing times, constant themes, and also Demetri's great hair. And let me tell you, he does have great hair. So hope you enjoy the conversation. I guess the first question I have for you is, has your hair always looked that good, and how long does it take to get ready, and what product is involved? Because I'm serious. You have like the best hair I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. The product I use is genetics. I do nothing.
Is it
I
really?
I don't use gel or wax. I just put a lot of water. Not only in the morning, I just put a lot of water throughout the day. And even, just so you know, I never used a hair dryer since I was 15 years old. So also my hair comes in many different colors, you see? So it's like, they call it in Italy tricolore, which is like three color. Yeah. And it's okay, because I think I'm one of those guys in my age that we still have hair and we feel younger than we really are.
Well, it's, you got other people your age have to really, not like you for that reason, because it is pretty magnificent head of hair. And at a certain age, any head of hair, I guess, is okay, unless you have a well-shaped bald head, which I don't know that I do. So I'm holding on for as long as I can, because I don't know if bald would look good on me at all.
Same here. Thank God I never had to make the choice of, getting all the hair out. But it's, I think it's purely genetics. Because I remember my father, he used to have great hair. So even he died, he was 80 years old, and he still had hair, a lot of hair. And actually, half of them were still black. Mine is not. I used to be blonde when I used to be a kid.
Really?
I used to be blonde, reddish blonde. So, and also I got this mocking in the school that I was one of the few blonde kids, not typical Greek.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that, because you have blonde hair as a Greek must have stood out pretty significantly.
Yeah, but then again, if you see like 3 or 4 generations back, one part of my family comes from south part of Italy. And some of those guys probably, because there's a big Greek community. Even today, there's a big Greek community in south part of Italy, and they still speak not the typical Greek, but they speak an idiom that sounds like a mix between Greek and Italian. So yeah, well, and my mom is also blonde, 100%. So
really, well, I think there's also a big Greek community everywhere. I mean, when I was growing up, I had a Greek family next to me. I called the grandmother Yaya.
Of course.
Right. And there's Greek festivals, even here, like where I live now outside of Boston, there's Greek festivals. So my ancestry is Lebanese, and, that part of the Mediterranean tends to travel. We get around and we put settlements up everywhere.
We do, but I don't think that we have upgraded our lobby the way we could. It goes both for the Lebanese people, who are very good friends with the Greeks, and the Greek people. I think in terms of lobby, I think people from Israel have been really demonstrating what would be a great lobby player, right? We're not there yet. We're tier 2.
Right. And I would agree with that. And, I often wonder, I used to teach a class on immigrant entrepreneurship. So immigrants who go into business for themselves when they go to another place. And there seems to be, at least in Lebanese culture, that history of, we come from the Phoenicians and we've always been business people. And, the Greeks too, always going into business. Is that something you felt as a cultural kind of pulling you towards being an entrepreneur, or is it just more of just who you were as an individual person?
I don't think it comes, at least in my case, it was not the drive deriving from culture. I think it was the drive deriving of feeling free, have the freedom of deciding things for myself and for my business. I guess I was wrong because you don't have the freedom that you really think you have as an entrepreneur, because a million different things that they influence your decision, or you have somehow to position yourself and your company in a way that you can survive out there. But then again, I've been an entrepreneur since 2011, so it's 15 years in already. So, well, I don't regret it. I've built many interesting things. For my case, being a guy, lonely child, and from a Greek family, I think I'm happy with what I have been doing right now, but I never settled. So it keeps going, right? So it's this thirst and quench, how I'm going to quench my desire to build more. I don't know. I don't think probably when I'm going to die. I don't know. Something like that.
One of the things about your story that I learned the last time we chatted, which I think you can tell me if it links to your entrepreneurship, is you're self-taught musician. And I find that hugely admirable, because being a self-taught musician means that you're constantly confronted with, at least in my mind, doing the wrong thing and having to figure it out. And I think that, at least the way my mind works, I can be so self-critical that when I don't do something correctly, I really negatively judge myself. But for a person like you who got past the, I don't know what I'm doing on a keyboard playing piano, how does that relate to the drive you have as an entrepreneur, where there's going to be a lot of missteps, a lot of mistakes, a lot of failures, but that you push through it to get to a goal you're trying to achieve?
Yeah. First of all, I really don't go around and say that, I'm a self-taught musician. This doesn't really play well in the business world. Somehow there is a taboo in place, translating that into what this guy is doing. I mean, this is a hidden artist trying to do business. And what they don't really understand is that you need to be very artistic and very optimistic in order to be an entrepreneur. How this also translates into business creation is that if you create music, because this is, I'm a self-taught pianist because I wanted to start composing music, which is creation from scratch. And this is exactly the same when it goes to business. So out of the box thinking, unorthodox, and I think I have demonstrated that. So one little story. I was 14 to 15 years old when I woke up and I said to my parents, hey, you know what? I had a very vivid dream that I can play the piano. So as you may understand, both my parents were asking me if I'm on drugs.
Right.
And I was not, right? I said, I'm so convinced that I can play that I need somehow to buy a keyboard. Fast forward, my dad, who was very close to me, he said, okay, listen, what we're going to do. We're going to buy a keyboard and see if you really can stand by your words. If you don't, then we're going to have a mess in the house because your mom is going to go ballistic. And he was right. So he got the keyboard and we turned on the keyboard and I started playing. I'm not saying playing like a super pro, but I started playing things that make sense. So in terms of harmony, okay? My mother at the beginning thought that I was joking and there was a demo button back then, which there was some demo button, but then again, I demonstrated and I showed her that this is the demo button. This is what you hear. And when you stop the button, this is what the button, this is what I play. Fast forward, I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston and I attended. When I went to audition to Berklee, I told them I'm self-taught. So I just want to demonstrate what I can do. And as you may understand, the guys told me, okay, your fingering is all wrong. But you know what? You're not going to change that. Because we accept that you're different. We accept the way you have adapted to that already for years now. So we're not gonna put effort in changing these to correct fingering. At the end of the day, you don't want to become a piano performer. You want to make sure that you play enough piano that enables you to compose your own music. And I think also that demonstrated how people mid 90s, early to mid 90s, in the US were so forward thinking in accepting something totally unorthodox, that it's a lesson for the rest today. So yes, there is a huge link, there is a huge common ground, a common denominator of creative thinking when it comes to music composition and creation, and to business creation and also the business practices. Of course, always being transparent and legal.
Yeah, when I was talking about the immigrant entrepreneurship stuff, which also reminds me of what you're describing, when I teach my business students, I'm like, these are people who didn't take a business class per se. They didn't go to business school per se. They may not have had a business background per se, but they had an idea and they had a drive to achieve that idea. And they were open enough to, find the means of getting to that goal, regardless of what it took. And by that, I don't mean unethical, but I mean pooling family or community resources, working long hours, doing things that were outside of the box that were unorthodox or not tried before, because they weren't encumbered by orthodox thinking. Like, this is how you do it. This is the way it's done, and you need to follow this formula. And it kind of sounds the same what you're describing to me, that it was unorthodox but effective, and it was something that was yours, and it demonstrated that you could get to where you wanted to go through your own creativity and your own means.
Yes, that's 100% the case. And still, even today, that I have accumulated all the experience of being an entrepreneur with all the good things and all the bad things, the pros and cons. I think they're, probably 80% negative, being an entrepreneur, and 20% positive. So you have maybe 1 or 2 moments every 10 moments that are pure joy. But then again, through the years, I started, and I know it might sound spooky, but here we go. Through the years, I started recognizing and finding joy in solving crises and problems, and mitigating risk and controlling the damage. I came to a point that I find it creative and intriguing at the same time.
Right.
I know it sounds crazy, and some would say this guy is really sick. I'm not. I think it comes from experience. So if you don't even take any joy in solving problems, then you should not do that. And this is exactly sometimes, I think we have this in our previous virtual coffee discussion. I think this is also very well linked with the reality of how governments around the world have been pushing people in becoming an entrepreneur and starting their own company, like a startup. And I'm saying this is wrong, because you're wasting probably innate talent, people that could have been phenomenal players or employees, very high caliber employees for very big companies or hyperscalers or whatever. And the governments are pushing them to become entrepreneurs, and they don't even care if those guys have the guts to take it, because it takes some stomach to swallow all the bitterness, and also make sure that you're comfortable that the bittersweet is not equal, right? The bitter is 80%, and the sweet is 20%. And I think we're burning people in that path. We should also give the room to people to choose that, hey, you know what? I can be equally successful. I can even become a high net worth individual if I manage to be a very successful C-level employee for a company and I get a couple of million compensation every year, you this is equally successful like being an entrepreneur and have 2 or 3 exits in your resume. That's about it.
Yeah, I think, it goes back to, well, how do we define success, and that it's not just, the quote unquote American dream or the dream of I'm going to start my own business. There are, what's important in your life? What do you value? And what's the purpose of starting your own business to begin with? Is it to fulfill some, idea of a dream, or is it because you're driven to do so, or is it because someone told you needed to be successful? I think it's like really important questions I even have to ask my students frequently is, what's the motivation? What's the purpose? What's the mission you're trying to accomplish here?
As I said, for me, it was freedom. When I started my business, it was freedom. I wanted to be free of, being within, ring-fenced do's and don'ts, being judged by bosses or whatever. So I thought it was a way to gain the absolute freedom and enjoy my success stories, and also be able to swallow my failures, which I do. So my failures have been also, I think, the most fantastic building blocks of any success story. Now, when it comes to defining success, I think for everyone is different, and also it varies. When you're 30, success story probably is something different in your mind when you're 65 or you're 45. So it's different. Right now, I've reached a point that for me, success is that I can decide what I do with my time. This is very important. What I do with my time, this is the ultimate currency. I think it's also the hardest currency out there. You can run out of cash flow and find a way in a couple of months, and voila. But what about time? Are you getting back your 2 months? No, you're not. So this is the most important, regardless if this time is spending an hour for a nice podcast, or spending an hour having, or 2 hours, a constructive internal meeting, or arguing with a client or whatever. Spending time with your kids and your family. I have 2 kids, so I understand the time. You cannot be with them forever. So everything everything is about time. And this is exactly what I think about AI as well, right? So AI is going to be the bridge. It paves the way we're going to convert capitalism to timeism. So capitalism is going to die with AI within the next 5 years, probably. And then everyone will be judged what you do with your time. What are you pursuing with your time? So if your basic goods are covered by AI, and there's also going to be like probably a kind of AI kind of income, then you're just what you create. What do you do with your time? Are you going to be upgrading as a human being, or you're going to still be chasing the competition carrot of who has more money? For me, it's very important.
Well, this is one of the interesting things about AI right now in the conversations, because I'm glad you kind of approached it that way. There's so many people talking about what AI is going to do to certain kinds of jobs or professions, but then not taking the next step of saying, okay, if that happens, then what? If capitalism is predicated on me exchanging my time and my labor for a wage that I can then spend in an economy, if I no longer am needed or called upon to do the labor, I don't get the wage, then how do we have an economy, and what does that look like? I don't see I know people are talking about it, but not in the shows that I see about what is it then that's going to happen if people aren't exchanging their time as labor for wage to then spend in an economy. And so when you say capitalism dead in 5 years, it's going to need to be, the society is going to need to be transformed, the economic system. Yeah, that's the next logical step.
I think it will, and I think the only hard currency is not going to be the U.S. dollar. It's going to be time. Um, you see, for the last 5 6 years, maybe more, what's happening with, all the way from NFTs, used to be hype before the pandemic, to digital currencies. So fiat currency is diminishing. So it's probably we're witnessing the end of the fiat currency era. And even the digital kind of currency is going to be just used to exchange something more in terms of price. But your basic day-to-day life is going to be transformed in a profound, phenomenal way. At least this is, listen, Gary, anyone can say whatever they want right now. There's no right or wrong. So
Right.
I'm not trying to position myself as the messiah of foreshadowing the future. All I'm recruiting my common understanding into how this is going to play out at the end of the day. So, and the end of the day might be in 3 years or 5 years or 6 7 years from now, but it's not going to be in 20 years. So it's something not very far away. And I understand people are right now worried if they're going to lose their jobs, or if you really see what's happening right now with AI, nobody's really losing their job per se. Some people, that probably the middle level managers, are losing their jobs, and this is the trend in the US right now, but nowhere else. Eventually, these people are going to start exploiting AI in the proper way, and some people are going to transform. There's going to be a transition. So this transition, unfortunately, has a gap. And this is the
Right.
gap between of losing my job and getting an AI income from the governments of this world, which I think is going to be mandatory. Okay, this is going to be a transition gap, and this is exactly how people need to mitigate that. I think people who are on their 40s are fortunate enough. People who are on the 70s, it's going to be a hike for them. So I think it's a generational gap. And of course, people who are like teenagers right now, I think what they're studying right now, it's going to become very fast obsolete and
Yeah.
irrelevant.
Yeah, well, this is how sociology was formed, was, in the transition between agrarian to industrial society, and studying the dislocations and the social changes that resulted from it. And we're living in another one of those moments where it's, this fundamental change in how technology impacts and shapes economies and societies. And that gap is that dislocation that you have a lot of social turmoil until things get figured out and settled in. So you're sounding very much like a sociologist right now.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm just a business guy, an entrepreneur, but at the same time, I recognize that, listen, we are affected by that anyhow, right? So you see, there is a war, you get affected. There is no war, again, you get affected from something else.
Right.
For example, right now in the agentic AI, you see that, and very few people have the honesty, because there is a taboo when it comes to discussing the challenge and the failure, and everyone wants to present themselves as very successful on Instagram or very confident on LinkedIn. But then again, if you have the chance to spend some time having a cup of coffee or dinner with someone, you understand, all these filters, when they stop playing, they expose themselves.
Right.
So I choose to not to use this kind of filters. And I'm saying to you that right now, there's no adaption when it comes to the agent AI. Right now, March 10, 2026, there's no adaption whatsoever. Are we going to experience a worldwide adoption? Yes, for sure. When? I have no idea. I can probably come up with, probably read white papers from McKinsey and Boston Consulting Group and Deloitte and say, hey, yes, probably going to experience the inflection point in the next year or so. But right now, every single company in the agentic AI is in the, how you say, I think it's called the adoption valley of death. It's this valley that is just before the adoption hits the inflection point. And this is not a concern. This is just an acknowledgement of the terrain. So people, partners, clients, employees, investors who are not comfortable identifying the terrain right now, they should not be in this ecosystem, because this is the ecosystem. So this is, I think, the most important real turbulence of agentic AI. But then again, it is for the good, right? It's going to be clearing the noise, lots of noise right now. Hyperscalers are building horizontally. The rest of the players are trying to build vertically, some of them in the most proper way, some of them in the wrong way, presenting themselves and positioning as LLM wrappers or whatever. But then again, we need to understand the companies who build right now intentionally and concisely are going to be the ones, because there's not going to be one winner. You know that. It's going to be a bunch of winners. So they're going to be part of the winners team after adoption rate is here for good. Until then, it's going to be a hype. So here we are.
And so thinking about all of this, what was the motivation and the genesis of Superbo in terms of creating, a player in this space that is, no one's quite sure when things are going to happen and what the shifting terrain is?
Let me start from the last thing that you said, the shifting terrain. I think the terrain has been very, elusive and liquid for most of the companies right now, because they have been reading the market in a wrong way. Many of them, they rushed into being the first movers, being LLM wrappers, and trying to go to market very fast, building vertical agents that will flop in the next step of the way when it comes to full-scale production. Because there is no AI agent right now out there that can safely being deployed, have access, have control, and generate the desirable business outcome or value. So these companies rushed, and I think they created a marketing gimmick of being the first ones, and they're going to be the first one who are going to actually collapse. I think it is very important, and this is why we did in Superbo, not to rush to chase revenue when revenue is not part of the market right now, but to build concisely with intention where we think this is going to go. At the end of the day, the business outcome is going to be a vertical kind of agent or agents. The big difference will be what kind of horizontal stack these agents are using. And in most cases, probably 95% of the cases, they don't use one. Companies, they build right now, Gary, AI agents on hyperscaler frameworks like Vertex of Google. And you can build very fast and deploy very, very fast. But then you reach a point that Google Vertex will not offer the tailor-making bespoke design for an agent, specifically, for example, for American Airlines. It's not going to happen. They don't care about that. This is not their line of business. They build horizontally. So in Superbo, we saw a very specific opportunity in building and keep building with purpose and intention to be here for the next day. I think the only challenge for builders like Superbo is how we mitigate the valley right now, and I think we have been doing so successfully. But then again, bumpy road is always part of the equation, and we are ready to do our best for that. But the desirable outcome, what is where we want to go, we know very well where we want to go. We build so we can ride the adoption wave when the wave is here. We're not talking about, at the end of the day, a wave that's going to come here in the next 5 years. This is more likely, in the next 6, 7, 8, 12 months tops. So it's coming. It's coming really fast right now. And I think it's going to also help release all the noise right now. You see, you have companies out there that used to sell social media services or advertising services, and all of a sudden they go out there and they say, we offer AI solutions. What exactly is AI solutions? I mean, at the end of the day, can you really define? So people come to the brains of business people or tech people in small, medium enterprises when you knock on the door and you say, hey, guys, hey, we got news for you. Remember, we used to be your social media agency. Now we sell AI solutions, and they have no idea. And probably just because they have established a relationship in place, they have it in place, most likely they're going to give the opportunity for them to pitch, and getting, receiving all these different kind of pitches, it creates noise.
Right.
And then you end up having a market of zero adoption because people in the organization have no idea what to do right now, regardless of geography. Of course, if you tell me how people are adopting in the west part of Africa, it's a lot more difficult than in the US or Middle East or Europe. But then again, no one is ready. Not yet.
It seems to remind me in some ways of back in the day of even expert systems or enterprise systems where we need to adopt because everyone else is adopting and we don't want to be left out. So we just are going to figure out which is available from a name brand or a price or a relationship, as you said, just so we can say we adopt. And then we're going to call it success. And then when it comes down to actually seeing the benefits of it, then there's a huge gap and a huge fall off.
It's a fatal mistake. For me, it's going to be a fatal mistake. This is a new sector. It's a new way of writing software. It's a new software paradigm. I understand organizations that they feel a lot more confident, and they understand that a decision to go with a very big name on the door, it is not going to be challenged by a board or by any assessment team, or it's because it's politically correct. But it's not. It's a fatal mistake. Right. Because even those guys, the big names, they have no idea what they're doing right now. And this is, you don't say that, but we have to say that because this is the truth out there. And so they're not really adopting. It's theatrics. Right. So if you want to adopt, you need to make sure that you know what problem you're trying to solve and know your problems. You see, most of the 99% of the organizations out there, they have chaotic data structure. Actually, it is unstructured. So it's here and there in different CRMs, ERPs, billing systems, PDFs, spreadsheets. And they expect AI to come with a magic wand and solve this. This is primetime bullshit. It's not going to happen. You need a way to structure the data. So we're not going to structure the data for the business themselves per se, but we need to structure the data for us internally in Superbo just to make sure that the agents that we deploy, they have structured layered of data. This is something that everyone is missing or intentionally skipping because this is the difficult part.
Yeah, I appreciate that because one of my background areas is something called conversation analysis and, studying the detailed aspects of conversation and interaction. And there's a whole literature, there's a whole foundation of it. But then when I go into talk to companies about this stuff, they're like, the only way we can take charge of our data is by turning these conversational structures into abstract numerics. And then they call that data. I'm like, you need to know how to handle the data that already exists without, as we would say, quantifying the qualitative. You need to structure it, but you can also, in the way you're structuring it, lose the richness, the import of that data that can then be the really crucial ingredient to what you're talking about, which is transforming it into this model or this competent technology that can actually assist you with your goals. Yeah, understandable.
Yeah, converting something understandable, because this is how the ontology and taxonomy works, and this because you see in most of the cases, eventually the AI agent will take a decision, and then you need to know why. This is most of the times. It has a qualitative spin in it, right?
Right.
So you need to be able to answer the why. Nobody's answering the why right now.
Right. One of the episodes I just recently launched was with a person who is one of the early thinkers in online dispute resolution. And he ran online dispute resolution for eBay. And we were talking about AI and online dispute resolution. And one of the things in dispute resolution that, it's not outcome dependent in terms of how I view it. It's process dependent. Did you listen to me? Do I feel heard? Do I feel that the decision was just and equitable no matter what the outcome is? And it's not this just binary, I won, I lost. It's qualitative. How I feel about it is a qualitative feeling about how I think about the whole thing. And that kind of, I think, goes to what you're talking about with how do we train a system to do that in a way that people might be able to do that.
Yeah, well, from our perspective, you need to have 4 different layers to achieve that. And this is exactly what we're building. So this is how we see things evolving, actually, and be the way to the way forward. So just from the 30,000 feet, we build 4 layers in Superbo. We build the access layer that connects the company with the backend systems of an organization. Then we have a second layer, which is the understanding layer, as you said. It makes the data understandable. Then we have building the third layer, which makes it's called the control layer. This is how I call it. It makes the AI safe and controlled. And the last layer, it's called the business outcome or the value outcome layer, which turns all that into business facing agents. And this is probably the only way we can move forward in creating value. And most of the companies just don't do that, or they will not start building that just because I understand it's hard to grasp, it's hard to architect, and also it requires time and money. So time and money, when it's not coming from organic growth, which is not going to come from organic growth, you need to find ways to support it. And this is also a very difficult, it's a difficult path, because you also need to make sure that you have a bunch of investors or any investor who can really understand what you're building and why what you're building today is going to be worth millions, if not billions, in the next couple of years. It's hard. It's hard to persuade someone for a sector that has just started. And it's not just a new sector, which is the AI sector. It's also very peculiar. You see, every sector traditionally required a sort of R&D. However, for AI, R&D is the sector. So the natural habitat of AI is the R&D right now. And so people and clients and partners, employees, investors, you name it, all the cycle, they tend to forget that. And then you understand that they don't understand from the questions they give you, right? We get 99% of the questions that we get are they betray the lack of understanding right now. It's frustrating, I can tell you, but we're nowhere on the right path.
When you're talking with clients about this, do you find that they just want an off-the-shelf kind of value-based solution where they're like, okay, just give me what I need? And you're like, no, it's not. It's more involved than that. And kind of taking them through this, do you find that there's a significant educational element and in some ways dissuading them from their original assumptions about what they think it's going to do or what they think it is based on what they read and into what you see as the current actual climate?
Yeah, very, very nice and very productive question. So here we go. Yes. First of all, let's start from the very large enterprises. And these guys, they will say, okay, no worries. We have solved that because we have outsourced that to the XYZ. I'm not going to refer to names, XYZ, the big names of the world, and they are taking care of that. And you're telling them that, hey, let me tell you something. They're not. They're just going to charge you 30 million and deliver nothing because they don't have the experience, the tech stack or whatever. So I'm not talking about the hyperscalers, but I'm talking all the system integrators and consulting companies. They're not. I mean, they are making progress in understanding because they've made some very targeted hires. But this is not enough. So this is one layer, the large enterprise layer. Then we have the mid-market. And the mid-market is huge. Now, these guys, they don't really understand. So they come to you and they say, oh, you're an agentic AI company. Okay, we need to solve 21 different things. Solved. Where's your magic wand? And you go like, that's not the way it goes down exactly. So we need to work together. This is not off the shelf. I mean, if you want something off the shelf, even if you want us to deploy a retrieval augmented solution like a RAG, even that requires your at least understanding and participation. And there are so many ways that you can do a RAG. Most of the companies, they have related the RAG, the augmented generation retrieval for customer care or consumer support. And that's not very true. There are so many creative ways to deploy something which is not complex. But again, in order to do it and deploy it in the correct way, it is complex. And, they will compare it when they say, oh, we have companies, they come here and, they tell us we can go live within a week.
Right.
We can also go live for a week. But then again, we need to see what you are trying to achieve here. So educating the market, it's a burden that I think every one of us in this sector has to live with. And you have to reconcile with the idea that you have a responsibility and all the Super Bowl companies out there, we have a responsibility educating the market. It's a learning curve. And this learning curve coincides exactly right now with the death valley of adoption that we see. So one generates the other and vice versa. So once we are off this valley, then I think especially the mid-market is going to enter the panic mode and will start asking for the right thing, at least in terms of approach. And then the big question would be how fast you as a scale-up company, how fast you can scale up. This is going to be the question then. So let's see. Interesting times ahead.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think, I might be totally off base with this, but it's fascinating me that going back to your veneer of social media where everyone seems really put together, but then when you kind of dig into people's lives, it's far more messy than that. I would imagine that when you're engaging with companies for the first time, they have a veneer of being all put together. And then when you take them through your process, that it unveils the messiness that they might not want to look at and have to actually ask some very hard questions, answer some very hard questions and ask some hard questions about who they are, what they're doing, why they're doing it that way, and really reconciling with the messiness that they have that they've been able to kind of push aside and not think about.
It's true. And I don't think they are, frankly speaking, I don't think they don't want to deal with the messiness right now because there's no owner, Gary. There is a very big discussion in organization. Who is the owner? Who is the data steward? Who is the owner at the end of the day for that? And the ownership does not come with clarity in those companies. And so, one is the partly owner and the other one is owner up to that point, and some other teams with another, from another, it's a relay. There needs to be an ownership structure of who owns what.
Right.
So, and this is something that is missing from most of the companies. And you know what? It's a hot potato right now. No one wants to be the owner. So they say, you know what? I'm not the owner. This is the most I can talk about it. This is the most decision I can take for you. But then you need to go to the business owner, IT, AI, digital, you name it. And then all of a sudden, this sales cycle becomes 3-year sales cycle for no reason. Not because your product is not there. No. It's because the market is not there. So not having a clean-cut ownership structure is one of those building blocks of the noise that we have today.
Right. And so then your role, and it's not just a tech company, it really becomes a change management company or a, improvement company. I won't want to say consulting services, but it does feel like it's hard to get away from advising, not just in terms of where the technology is and where it's going and how to use it, but also internally structure relationships, ownership, lines of communication around all of it. So, it's not just plug and play. It's you have to kind of be a partner with a company to take them through all of this.
Yeah, they need to grow with you and you need to grow with them. So you just need this carte blanche from someone. It's a trust issue. And then again, they are very circumspect because they say, we cannot really decide in growing together with a company like Superb because you are not Google. And then again, when you try to reframe yourself and say, okay, guys, picture this. We are in the mid-90s. And the question is, who is Google?
Right.
Okay. This is the case right now. All right. So Google was nothing. And today is Google. So it has to do with opportunity. Now you're going to tell me, but they were in the West Coast of the US, which everything happens, Silicon Valley, blah, blah. Yeah, but there are many other examples around the world, all the way from Israel to Middle East to Europe, that you got successful companies. And a company does not need to become Google to become successful.
Of course.
So the clients today, they tend to forget the history. What was Microsoft? What was Google? Apple went through very difficult times. So many times they had Steve Jobs. They had to kick him out. Then he made Pixar, which is media, and then he went back. So history is here to learn. We need to learn something out of that, and we take things for granted, and we should not. And out there, that's it is what it is right now. But again, the promise is huge.
Going back to one of the things, as we kind of wrap up here, but one of the things you mentioned, this reminds me of, is our earlier in the conversation is around freedom, right? I've had people ask me, the school I work at, it's well known where I live, but it's not necessarily well known around the world. It's not a big research one place like a Harvard or a, University of Michigan or UCLA. Right? It's not, or Stanford. And people would say to me, well, don't you wish you worked at a place like that? And I was like, why? Where I work now is great because I have freedom. It's, able to respond to changing markets, changing conditions, changing environments much more quickly because it's built on relationships. It's much more, fluid and flexible. I wouldn't want to be at a traditional, highly structured place because I'd be locked into a certain orthodox format. And when I hear you talk about Superbo in relation to some of these other competitors, you're kind of in the same position, right? There's a freedom, there's a flexibility, there is a fluidity with which you can work with your clients that other organizations not necessarily can.
You're right. And in order to achieve freedom, you need to be agile. Bless you. So you need to be agile, right? Agility comes with freedom, and
right.
Freedom comes with agility. So, there is no freedom without agility, and we know that. It comes with certain risk and burden. There's I think the most difficult, the most tiring, sometimes the most toxic conversations are the internal ones.
Right.
It's very hard to switch the mindset of people to accept reality sometimes. And at the end of the day, someone who's an employee might be thinking in a big way without accepting the big risk. So if you really think about it, this is something that has been passing my mind. When I used to be an employee, because I've been an employee myself, so I wasn't always an entrepreneur. I was always ready to take the hit if something didn't go well, and was always ready to accept the hard reality. And nowadays, it's a bit different. Employees have the tendency of not recognizing the pros and cons. They say, "Oh, I'm working in a very forward-thinking company in agentic AI. We're building something phenomenal. I'm very happy because I'm part of being a builder. And sometimes, I come up with creative ideas and how we build and how we architect. But then again, when it comes to the bumpy road, it is very hard to swallow because it is a very bitter pill when, they see that, there is a bumpy road ahead for everyone. Now, there is a solution for people who cannot swallow the pill. They need to make sure that they don't work in that kind of sector. And I have been telling them, sometimes we didn't complete a hire because we thought that the person wouldn't be able to swallow the difficulty.
Right.
Although the person had all the skill set in the world and a fantastic CV, we had to refrain from hiring the person because we felt that the person would feel very uncomfortable when difficult times hit the your everyday reality. And difficult times have hit everyone of this ecosystem before, and they will hit again up to the point that the adoption will hit the inflection point.
Right.
So, that's about it.
Well, it makes me think of, Super Bowl, not just as a, quote unquote product company, but as a kind of prophetic company in the ways of, as we're talking about what might happen, no one knows for sure, but past is prelude, and we can have a sense of, what is going to take place given our knowledge of the past. And, there's probably no better person to talk about knowledge of the past than a person from Greece. And so much of our contemporary world is based in that past as well. So I'm not calling you like Oracle of Delphi, but maybe
No,
an
no.
oracle of AI?
No,
Not
no,
Delphi.
no, 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 no. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. All I'm saying is that we need to take value from the recent history. It's not only
Yeah.
about the 3,500 years ago of Greece's
Yeah.
history, but I'm talking about, let's see, Amazon used to be not profitable, you're losing billions for a bunch of years.
Right.
All right. You need to be comfortable with that idea. Either if you're a client, a partner, an employee, or investor. If you're not, then you should go and invest your money or invest your time as an employee to a cash cow. Go to a supermarket. Supermarkets are cash cow, right?
Right.
So they're never going to die. You still need food to eat. So if you're, very low returns, but very stable, go there. Go there. Be my guest. If you're not and you're chasing the adventure, I think this is the right place to be. So much recent tech history out there, especially from the US, should be part of the learning curve today. And unfortunately, Gary, I don't see that people easily, they're not really using it. They're not. Only selectively, right? Whenever it fits their narrative, they're going to use it. If it's not fitting the narrative, they're going to refrain from that.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk about all of it. I mean, it's an exciting time and it's a scary time and it's a bumpy time, but it is we can't escape it, right? This is the time we're in and there's no way of getting around it. And so we have to discuss it, reckon with it and plan for it because this is what it is. It is
what it is. I find it very interesting time. I love it. I know I know it's difficult and the roads to Ithaca, as we say in Greece, it's always bumpy. But we know there is a place called Ithaca and this is where we're going. And personally, I'm all in. I'm a very big believer of the ecosystem. I'm a very big believer of what we do in Super Bowl, but also I'm also a very big believer of how many other companies are thinking about that in the proper way. And, if you really see the recent history, there were companies that failed to adapt. Okay. And they reached a very difficult point in adopting and eventually, they had to shut down. So it is very important that they need to adapt. And I'm talking about the prospect clients. I'm going to tell you that and we can wrap up. I was having dinner a couple of weeks ago with a friend, and we were discussing about the case of Kodak.
Right.
Kodak. All right. Okay, these guys, they were like a giant on a global scale when it comes to film paper and film and photo cameras. And they never saw it coming when it comes to digital camera or what on earth happened there? I mean, should we learn something from that? It is, adoption is very important. I think it's the ultimate measure of intelligence, how you can easily adapt. Companies who are going to on board with the proper way on the agentic AI and going to be the first true adopters are going to overperform and overrun all the other companies who just don't. And don't take me wrong, many of the companies don't even talk about AI. They just feel insecure. When I know law officers, they say, we're not going to use, we're afraid about the LLM, the data, AI sovereignty and stuff. Yeah. We take that into consideration in what we do right now. But then again, you should start engaging yourself with a new reality.
Well, I think that's a great place to end. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about it. And it's going to be exciting to see where it all goes.
Thanks. Thank you, Gary. Thank you very much for having me. It's a great conversation. And even now, the podcast, the previous one as well, I enjoyed it equally. Looking forward, grabbing a coffee in Newbury Street.
Sounds great. My treat.
Okay.
I want to thank Demetri Papazissis for joining me to talk about making music, entrepreneurship, AI, and Greece, as well as his great hair. And it is pretty great. You can find out more about his work in the links in the show notes. As always, you can share feedback about this episode or any episode at feedback@experiencexdesign.com. And if you head over to experiencexdesign.com, you can also subscribe to my newsletter, which now is going to be solely done through Substack. So I provide a link there that will get you right into the Substack subscriber base where you can stay on top of all of the EXD news. And if you're already on Substack, you can just search for Experience by Design and I should pop up. So make sure you go ahead and do that. Also, make sure you're following me on LinkedIn so that you can stay on top of all of the news around my new upcoming book, fingers crossed, The Unwow, Your Blueprint for Experience Designs of All Kinds. I'm going to be providing a lot more updates on the book there, as well as providing you with an opportunity to be part of the book. So follow me at LinkedIn, Gary David, or follow experiencexdesign.com to stay on top of all of the news. And with that, as always, be safe, be kind, be well, and be here next week for the next Experience by Design. Bye.